it's Davina. We're in my kitchen again, and I am wearing my Fish Food Bank Not All Heroes Wear Capes t-shirt. And fish is a very good topic because today I'm going to be making gefilte fish. Now, gefilte fish. People hear that and they go, what is that? In fact, I was at my work and I mentioned I was going to make gefilte fish to a coworker and they went, ugh, wait, no, I was thinking lutefisk. What is gefilte fish? Gefilte fish is fish meatballs. That's it, fish balls. And many cultures have some kind of fish ball. And I'm going to show you how easy gefilte fish can be. To make meatballs, you need a meat, you need a starch, and you need a binding agent. So what I've got here is about 1 pound total of fish. I've got 2 pieces of salmon. I've got 2 pieces of a white fish. I can't remember what white fish this is, but it's a white fish. I've got 2 matzo crackers. These are like massive, massive saltines. And I've got an egg. That's it. That's all you need. But wait, there's more. Now I could just stop right there. I've got my protein, my starch, and my binding agent done. But those would be some of the most boring fish meatballs. There's no seasoning to it, no life to it. It would just be fish balls. And, you know, if you like super plain food, you could go for it. But I'm gonna do a little bit more. Now, you could really use any seasoning you want at this point. You could go Korean, you could go Vietnamese, you could go Norwegian, you could go anywhere in the world with these, depending on what kind of spices you want to put into it, what kind of herbs. Go for it with your spices, but I'm actually gonna take my inspiration from the Passover Seder plate. Okay. Please forgive my terrible pronunciation. This is a Passover Seder plate. It has these compartments and yeah, you put specific food into each of those compartments and you go through the Seder dinner for Passover and it's very enjoyable. I don't speak Hebrew, so this plate is a bit of a challenge to me every year that I've used it. Some plates will have pictures to help you out, or even English translations, or even a transliteration, so if you can't read the Hebrew, you can at least pronounce something vaguely like the sounds of Hebrew, and get the message across that way. I instead have a cheat sheet I've written. I'm going to read off of while I explain each of these parts. So I'm not going to use every one of these compartments. And by the way, this shows 6 compartments. There's actually 8 to 10 things that could be in a Seder dinner. So we'll talk about that. I'm not going to use everything, but there's definitely some that will be delicious in these gefilte fish balls. Zeroa, which is a roasted lamb bone. Bietza, which is a roasted hard-boiled egg, usually roasted with the lamb bone. We've got maror, which is horseradish or shredded onion. We've got karpas, which is the sweet greens or sweet vegetable. Hazret, a second bitter herb, usually leafy and green, something like kale or romaine lettuce or even dandelion greens. And over here last is haroset, which is a fruit mixture often mixed with a little bit of honey and wine, often apples, dates, figs, or other sweet fruit that kind of makes a nice, tasty treat. So that's the main 6, but there's 2 other main things that have to be present that aren't on this plate. And one of them is matzah. Yeah, the same matzah here. And now you notice this cracker is too big to fit on this plate. Matzah gets its own separate plate. And on its own separate plate, it gets to be stacked in between layers of napkins with one napkin on top, and then sometime during the dinner, one of them gets hidden away somewhere for the children to find as a treat. Yeah, so that's a thing. And also, those sweet herbs or sweet vegetables need to be dipped into something at some point, and that something is tears. Yeah, that's right. I think it's pronounced dima, and that's going to be salt water or vinegar water. Those are the main parts, plus the two that don't show up on the plate. But then there's another two that have also been added: olives and oranges. Olive branch has long been a symbol of peace, and you can bring olives in by having just a bowl of pitted olives or by having a little bit of olive oil to dip things in. The orange is supposed to show the fruitfulness and the expansion of the faith. So people who have been marginalized or in past have been pushed out are welcomed back with the orange because it is showing fruitfulness within the community. And that could be women, it could be LGBTQ, it could be anyone who's felt at some point excluded to be brought back in the fruitfulness of the faith. So with all that going on, what am I actually going to be putting in to my fish balls? Well, not going to put in the lamb bone. And by the way, there's some substitutions that could go on here, because lamb bone doesn't work for people who are vegetarian. It can be kind of troublesome. Well, the lamb bone is supposed to represent the sacrifices that were made in the temple way back in the day, and then it was destroyed. And then they rebuilt the temple and they did sacrifices again, and then it got destroyed again by the Romans. And it hasn't been rebuilt yet, but there's a wall that you can go and visit. So if what you're trying to do is recognize those sacrifices that were made in ancient times, some people use a piece of charred cedar. Okay, well, cedar is awesome as something to smoke things with, and maybe you want to smoke your egg with a little bit of cedar, or use that when you're roasting your egg so that you get some of that nice cedar pungentiness. If you've ever had salmon on a cedar plank from the Pacific Northwest, so good. So yeah, that's an option. I'm not going to do cedar smoked gefilte fish, but now I kind of want to. I'll think about that. Egg, got it. It's in there. Matzo as well, it's in there. Salt, water, and vinegar. You know what? A little bit of vinegar to offset the fish, maybe something like a sherry or a champagne, or maybe even a rice wine vinegar, and a bit of salt. That's some good seasoning. Then going around, we've got maror, the horseradish. You know what? A little bit of horseradish, maybe a little bit of horseradish mustard in this. Could be pretty good. But it could also be garlic and onions. So I think I'm gonna put all three in. So now we're on to the sweet vegetables. And that could be parsley, but there were times and places where people who were trying to do their Seder meals couldn't get a hold of parsley because it was under snow. Well, in those cases, they often use something like a boiled potato, parsnip, or carrot. I think I'm going to use both parsley and carrot. Okay, heading back around, we've got the bitter lettuce or other. And I'm not gonna put lettuce into this because eventually we're gonna be cooking this, and yeah, it doesn't quite go well. Now you could use kale, that would work, but I'm going to instead use celery. Some people think, celery is not bitter. Celery is bitter when it hits the sunlight. Most of the celery that you've had has been protected from the sun and isn't very dark green. If you ever grow your own celery, and you had that very dark green part, you know it's got a bitterness to it. So I'm going to use one of the darkest green stalks of celery that I have, and I'm going to put it in. And now we've got the weird one, rosette. How am I going to put some sweet sort of fruit in here? Well, if you've ever looked up a gefilte fish recipe, they sometimes ask for a tablespoon of sugar. yeah, I'm not going to do that. But because the haroset can be made with apples, dates, figs, or other sweet fruits, I think a little bit of applesauce to this, or maybe a little bit of date sugar or date syrup to this would not be a bad idea. Just to give a tiny little bit of sweetness to offset the salty and the sour and the onions and everything else that's going on. So I think I'm going to actually use date syrup. I do have applesauce, but I've also got date syrup, so why not use that? And now we get to think on, do we want to do something with those extra two, the olives as a symbol of peace or shalom, and the orange para, I believe it's called. I could do like sweet lemon juice or a very sour orange juice to offset the fishiness. I think I might do just a little bit of citrus juice. And I think I'll also use a little bit of olive oil. Because I've got an egg in here, that's going to still kind of hold things together, but I don't want to get too aggressive with my oil, otherwise the fish balls won't hold together. Okay, so now I've got pretty much all the parts of the Seder plate, with the exception of a lamb bone, in here. And if later on I decide to smoke this with cedar, that'll be really tasty. But yeah, I'm just gonna put this all through a food processor and make some gefilte fish balls.
There are definitely some texture preferences when it comes to gefilte fish. If you get the stuff that comes in a jar, it has a very monolithic texture. It doesn't have very much tooth feel at all. I like to actually have chunks of fish, but I don't like big stringy pieces of parsley or carrots. So I'm going to finely dice my parsley and finely grate my carrot in a, I guess some people use this for Parmesan, but I use it for carrots when I don't want big, huge shreds. And then everything else I'm going to put through the shredder in my food processor. And one of the last things that I'm going to put in is my fish, so that my fish actually has flakes of fish inside my fish balls. Now, if you want something that's a smoother texture, you're going to want to do the fish and the liquids first to get those really blended well. In fact, you might want to put the egg, all the liquids, and the fish into your blender and do that, and then put that into your food processor with all of your veggies if you want your veggies to have more of the texture properties. That's not how I like it. I like my fish to be kind of flaky inside. This is also a good chance to talk about other substitutions, because if you have to do gluten-free because you can't digest wheat, I understand that, and you can actually substitute in nuts, because I forgot that haroset that I talked about that's got the apples or figs or whatever other fruit, that also comes with nuts. Usually walnuts or pecans or almonds. So if you want to use almond to be your starch for the binding and making your meatballs, you can totally do that. When it comes to doing something vegan, we got something interesting going on. You could totally substitute out your egg for an eggplant. Maybe do some roasted baba ganoush instead of roasted hard-boiled egg. Don't go with the huge purple ones. Go for one of those tiny little egg-shaped ones. That'll be enough. And when it comes to the gefilte fish, you know what? You could maybe substitute in garbanzo beans for the egg binding and also that, but then you're just making falafel. And interesting point, some groups find that beans and lentils are totally fine for Passover, and other groups said, hey, those swell up when exposed to water, which means that they might be leavening, and we're not supposed to have anything leavened over Passover. So depending on which traditions you follow, you might not be able to do the whole garbanzo bean thing for your binding agent. So just kind of be aware. If you're trying to make gefilte fish without the fish, you're actually making falafel balls instead of fish balls. So those are some other ideas for you. I think I actually could have put in some liquid smoke if I wanted to get that kind of smokiness for that first section of the Seder plate, but I didn't think of it this time, but I'll put it in the recipe down in the description, and you can leave comments to tell me how it turned out.
So here we have our gefilte fish mix, and it's got chunks of fish with the matzo crackers and the egg and all of that, and the herbs and the spices and the syrups and the flavorings all working together, and it's great. Now we have to decide how we want to serve it. Now, last year I followed a recipe that is usually for the whole family gathering, which was about 4 times as large, and would have fed maybe 12 people. And I had enough to fill this lovely fish tin and poach this, as well as having extra for gefilte fish balls. I'm not gonna bother with that again this year. Though it was really lovely taking slices off of this fish and putting them onto sandwiches as a quick and easy salmon/tuna fish sandwich. It was a little bit much. But you know what? If you're doing it for a big spread of people, go for it. If you're not, then we should make meatballs. Get yourself your largest cookie sheet that will fit into your freezer. Get yourself your meatball maker. Oh yeah, and take off all your jewelry. I should be like piping this into a casing that would then be boiled like some sort of weird fish sausage, and then the casing's removed before eating. I think gefilte fish actually stands for stuffed fish or casing fish. However, I don't really want to bother with that, so meatballs it is.
Now let's talk about timing, because the timing on this is actually really easy. I took about 10 minutes gathering my things together for ingredients, but honestly, if you already knew what you wanted to do, if you're just using seasoning from a jar, you could just blend the fish, the egg, and the crackers together, and boom, put it in your seasoning, make your balls, and you're done. You can cook them up fresh if you want to. You can bake them. I think that's one of the best ways to do these sort of things. If you want to steam them, those are also really good, and it gives you a similar sort of flavor texture to if you had done them in the boil, like the traditional. You can poach them or slowly slip them into some fish broth to have some of that more traditional gefilte fish style. But really, it's whatever cooking method that's going to take you the most time. Like blending all these ingredients together took maybe 15 minutes. So 10 minutes to gather your ingredients, 15 minutes to blend it all together. And then whatever cooking method you want to do. Slow roast, okay, take the time to do that. Oh, you're going to put them on kebabs and stick them on a grill? Okay, give them the time to do that. You're going to steam them, give them the time to do that. So the timing on this is just whatever method you choose to cook them. And you can do gefilte fish in less than an hour.
All right, there we go. We've got our fish balls, our gefilte fish. Now, I'm going to put these into my freezer until they're frozen hard. And then I'm going to throw them all in a Ziploc bag once they're frozen and won't stick to each other anymore as a giant fish blob. And then I could do a ton of things with them. I could defrost them, put them onto a kebab, and then grill them, and then have grilled gefilte fish. I could defrost them and put them in, I could put them just on this baking dish and bake them in the oven, have baked gefilte fish. I could steam them, I could fry them, I could boil them if I really wanted to, but these will probably fall apart unless I do a very careful slide in to the water and don't have it on too high of a boil, because I don't have casings around these. So I could cook these in all manner of way, and I could serve them up in any way that I choose. If you end up having some of these that you don't know what to do with, you can do spring rolls with them. You can again do kebabs with them. You can make, instead of a tuna fish sandwich, you can do a gefilte fish sandwich. something sort of like Asian street food where you get some of that unagi sauce and you grill some of these up and you drizzle that on top of there. So good. I mentioned the possibility of smoking some of these for smoked fish meatballs. Not gonna knock it, have not tried it yet. So yeah, these are super versatile, and it's an awesome way to include more fish in your diet, and also an interesting way to just experience the lovely culinary art of gefilte fish. Hazardous